3 months had passed since Dr. Helen Carter first touched the alien metal fragment. Her laboratory on Luna Station now looked completely different. The walls were covered with screens showing data about the Nexus core technology. Cables and wires connected the metal fragment to dozens of computers and testing machines. Helen had not slept well in weeks. Every day brought new discoveries about what the alien technology could do. The metal fragment was teaching them things about science and engineering that humans had never imagined possible. Kevin Park had become the primary test subject for neural interface experiments. The young graduate student spent several hours, each day connected to the Nexus core, exploring its digital consciousness and learning how it worked. The Nexus is like a sleeping giant, Kevin explained to Dr. Foster during one of their daily briefings. It has been waiting for minds that could understand it properly. Human thoughts wake it up in ways that no other species ever could. The breakthrough came when Kevin discovered that the Nexus core could connect to multiple human minds at the same time. Unlike other alien technologies that worked with only one operator, the Nexus seemed designed to link many people together into a single thinking network. When Lisa from the salvage crew connects with me in the Nexus, Kevin said, we can solve problems that neither of us could handle alone. The three of us together are smarter than the sum of our parts. Dr. Foster was documenting every aspect of these multi-mind connections. His research showed that humans retained their individual personalities while gaining access to enhanced problem-solving abilities and shared knowledge. The Nexus does not control human minds, Foster told Helen. Instead, it amplifies what makes us human. Our creativity, our ability to adapt, our talent for working together. The technology makes these human traits more powerful. Major Kate Wilson arrived at Luna Station on a Tuesday morning with classified orders from Earth Command. She was 37 years old and had spent her entire military career dealing with threats from outer space. Her face was serious as she met with Helen's research team. We have intercepted alien communications, Major Wilson announced to the assembled scientists. A species called the Zephyrians has been searching space for something they call the Lost Nexus. Intelligence analysis suggests they are looking for your metal fragment. Helen felt her stomach drop. She had hoped they would have more time to study the technology before its original owners came looking for it. How much time do we have? Dr. Foster asked. Unknown, Major Wilson replied. But our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual ship movements in nearby star systems. Something big is coming this way. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes had been quiet during the briefing, but now he spoke up. What do the Zephyrians want with this technology? Why is it so important to them? Major Wilson activated a holographic display that showed intercepted alien communications. The translated text was troubling to read. According to these messages, the Nexus core technology was the foundation of Zephyrian military power for centuries, she explained. They used it to coordinate their war fleets and conquer other civilizations. When they lost it in battle, their empire began to weaken. Kevin raised his hand like a student in class. Major, I have been inside the Nexus core's memory systems. The Zephyrians did not use this technology correctly. They tried to control it with rigid authoritarian thinking. That is why they lost it. What do you mean? Helen asked. The Nexus core works best with flexible, creative minds, Kevin explained. Zephyrian culture is based on strict hierarchy and obedience to authority. They could use the technology, but they could never unlock its full potential. Human minds are different. We think in ways that make the Nexus much more powerful. Dr. Foster had been analyzing the alien communication intercepts while the others talked. His findings were both encouraging and terrifying. The Zephyrians have been sending search fleets to every system where they lost Nexus technology, Foster said. They have been doing this for over 300 years. Earth is not the first planet they have visited. What happened to the other planets? Major Wilson asked. Foster's expression was grim. The Zephyrians demanded the return of their technology. When the other species refused or could not produce it, the Zephyrians destroyed their worlds and took the technology by force. The room fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. Earth was facing a choice between giving up the most important discovery in human history or fighting a war against a vastly superior alien empire. "How many ships are they bringing?" Lieutenant Colonel Hayes asked. "Our best estimates suggest a fleet of 200 to 300 vessels," Major Wilson replied, "including several dreadnought-class warships that are each larger than our biggest space stations." Helen looked at the glowing metal fragment that had started everything. 3 months ago, it had been just an interesting piece of salvage. Now it might be the key to human survival or the cause of human extinction. "We need to understand why the Nexus core works so well with human minds," Helen said. "If we can figure that out, maybe we can build our own version of the technology." Kevin had been connected to the Nexus during the entire briefing, and his neural interface was glowing with unusual patterns. When he spoke, his voice carried a strange echo, as if he was speaking for both himself and the alien technology. "The Nexus core wants to help humanity," Kevin said. "It has been waiting for a species that could use it properly. The Zephyrians created it, but they never understood what they had made." "What is it telling you?" Helen asked. "It is showing me blueprints," Kevin replied. "Designs for ships and weapons and defense systems that use Nexus technology. The original creators built war machines, but humans can build something better. Something that protects instead of conquers." Major Wilson was already activating her communication equipment. "I need to contact Earth Command immediately. If the Nexus core can help us build better defenses, we need to start construction as soon as possible." Dr. Foster was studying the readouts from Kevin's neural interface. "Helen, look at these patterns. The Nexus is not just sharing information with Kevin. It is actually redesigning itself to work better with human neural patterns." "What does that mean?" Helen asked. "It means the technology is evolving," Foster explained. "Every time a human connects with it, the Nexus learns more about how our minds work. It is becoming more human, in a sense." The implications were staggering. The alien technology was not just adapting to human use. It was transforming itself into something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. As alarms began sounding throughout Luna Station, Helen realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test. The Zephyrians were coming to reclaim their lost weapon, but they would find something very different from what they had lost centuries ago. The construction bays of Luna Station had never been so busy. Hundreds of workers and robots moved through the massive zero-gravity workshops, building something that had never existed before. The original alien metal fragment now sat at the center of a growing network of human and alien technology. Chief Design Engineer Carlos Rivera had been working for 18 hours straight. He was 41 years old and had built everything from mining equipment to military ships. But this project was unlike anything he had ever attempted. "We are not just copying alien technology," Carlos explained to his team during their morning briefing. "We are making it better. The Zephyrians built their Nexus for one controlling mind. We are building ours for many minds working together." Dr. Helen Carter worked closely with Carlos to make sure the human improvements did not damage the alien technology. She had learned more about the Nexus core in the past month than in all her previous research combined. The original fragment is teaching our computers how to build more Nexus material, Helen told Carlos. "Every piece we create is connected to every other piece. We are building a thinking network that spans multiple ships and stations." The first test pilot for the new Nexus-enhanced ship was Commander Alex Wright. Alex was 36 years old and had flown every type of spacecraft in the Earth Defense Fleet. He had volunteered for the dangerous job of connecting his mind directly to the alien technology. "I understand the risks," Alex told Major Wilson before his first test flight. "If this thing takes control of my mind, you have permission to shut it down by any means necessary." The test ship looked nothing like a traditional human vessel. The hull was made of the new Nexus material, which could change shape and thickness based on what the ship needed to do. The weapons and engines were integrated into the hull itself, making the entire ship a single, unified system. Alex climbed into the pilot's chair and placed his hands on the neural interface controls. The moment he made contact, his mind exploded with new sensations. He could feel every part of the ship as if it were part of his own body. Connection established, Alex reported through the communication system. I can feel the engines, the weapons, the hull plating. Everything is alive and responding to my thoughts. Dr. Ellen Price was monitoring Alex's brain activity from the control room. Ellen was the project's chief psychologist, and her job was to make sure the Nexus technology did not harm human minds. His neural patterns are stable, Ellen reported to the watching scientists and military officers. The Nexus is amplifying his natural abilities rather than replacing them. Alex began flying the test ship through a series of complicated maneuvers. The vessel moved in ways that defied everything humans knew about spaceflight. It could turn instantly, accelerate without warning, and change direction as quickly as Alex could think. "This is incredible," Alex said, his voice filled with wonder. "The ship is not just responding to my commands. It is anticipating what I want to do before I even think it clearly." The real breakthrough came when they connected a second pilot to the same ship. Lieutenant Danny Shaw joined Alex in the dual-pilot setup that Carlos had designed. Instead of fighting for control, the two human minds merged with the Nexus to create something greater than either could achieve alone. "We are thinking together," Danny reported. "I can feel Alex's thoughts, and he can feel mine. But we are still ourselves. The Nexus is like a bridge between our minds." Dr. Foster was recording everything from his observation station. The data they were collecting would change human understanding of consciousness and technology forever. "The pilots are not losing their humanity," Foster noted. "If anything, they are becoming more human. The technology amplifies creativity, intuition, and the ability to work with others." Over the following weeks, more ships were completed. Each vessel was unique because the Nexus material adapted to the specific pilots who would fly it. Alex's ship was built for speed and precision. Danny's ship was designed for heavy combat. Lisa Davis, the engineer from the salvage crew, piloted a ship that could repair itself and other vessels during battle. The ships could also work together in ways that traditional fleets never could. When Alex, Danny, and Lisa flew together, their three ships moved like parts of a single organism. They shared information instantly and coordinated attacks with perfect timing. "We are building more than just better ships," Carlos told Major Wilson during a construction update. "We are creating a new type of space fleet, one that thinks and acts as a unified intelligence while preserving individual creativity." The Nexus. Material itself was evolving as more humans worked with it. Each connection taught the alien technology something new about human nature. The metal became more responsive, more intuitive, and more effective at enhancing human abilities. Kevin Park, who had been the first to successfully connect with the original fragment, now served as the primary interface between human engineers and the growing Nexus network. His role had evolved from test subject to translator. "The Nexus is becoming something new," Kevin explained to Dr. Carter. "It is no longer purely Zephyrian technology. Human minds have changed it into something that has never existed before in the galaxy." The transformation was not limited to ships. Luna Station itself was being upgraded with Nexus technology. The station's defenses, life support systems, and communication networks were all connected through the alien material. The entire station could now think and react to threats as quickly as a human mind. Commander Alex Wright had become the unofficial leader of the Nexus pilots. His connection to the technology was deeper than anyone else's, and he had learned to communicate with the alien intelligence in ways that other humans could not. "The Nexus wants to protect humanity," Alex told the assembled military commanders. It has been waiting for a species that would use it for defense rather than conquest. We are giving it that chance. Dr. Price had been studying the psychological effects of long-term Nexus exposure. Her findings were encouraging and somewhat surprising. Extended connection to the Nexus actually makes people more empathetic and cooperative, she reported. Instead of becoming more machine-like, the pilots are becoming more in tune with human emotions and social connections. As the first squadron of Nexus-enhanced ships prepared for their initial patrol mission, deep, space sensors detected the approach of alien vessels. The Zephyrian fleet was still weeks away, but their signals were getting stronger. "We will be ready," Alex told Admiral Brooks, who had arrived to take command of Earth's defense. "The Zephyrians are expecting to find their old technology. They will find something completely different." The transformation was complete. Humanity had taken discarded alien scrap metal and forged it into weapons that surpassed anything their creators had ever imagined. But more importantly, they had created technology that reflected the best aspects of human nature rather than the worst impulses of war. Dr. Helen Carter had been studying alien technology for 12 years. She worked at the Terran Defense Labs on Luna Station, a huge research center built inside the moon. Helen had seen many strange things from outer space, but most of them turned out to be simple or useless. When Captain Jake Morrison's message reached Luna Station, Helen was working late in her laboratory. She read about the metal fragment and felt excited. The description sounded different from anything she had studied before. 2 weeks later, the Lucky Strike arrived at Luna Station. Helen watched through the station windows as the salvage ship moved slowly toward the docking bay. She could see the large piece of metal in the ship's cargo area. Even from far away, she could tell it was something special. Dr. Ryan Foster joined Helen at the observation window. Ryan was her research partner and one of the best alien technology experts in the solar system. He was 39 years old and had been working with Helen for 8 years. "Look at the surface patterns," Ryan said, pointing at the metal fragment. "Those are not random marks. Someone designed those shapes for a specific purpose." Helen nodded. She could see that the cuts and burn marks on the metal were not just battle damage. There were deliberate patterns hidden in what looked like destruction. The alien builders had been very clever. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Hayes arrived at the lab while Helen's team was preparing to examine the fragment. Steve was the military officer assigned to watch over their research. He was 45 years old and had been a soldier for 23 years. "How long before you can tell me if this thing is useful as a weapon?" Steve asked Helen. "Science takes time," Helen replied. "We need to understand what this metal is before we can know what it does." The first tests began the next morning. Helen's team used every scanner and measuring device they had. The results were confusing and exciting at the same time. "The metal is not just one element," Ryan told Helen after looking at the test results. "It is made of hundreds of different materials mixed together in a way that should not work. But somehow it does work, and it works perfectly. The metal could do things that normal materials could not do. When they hit it with a hammer, it absorbed the impact and spread the force evenly across its entire surface. When they tried to cut it, the metal seemed to heal itself and become stronger." "This is not just metal," Helen said to her team. "This is a smart material. It can think and react to what happens to it." The biggest surprise came when they tested the metal with electricity. Instead of conducting power like normal metal, it stored the energy and used it to power systems hidden inside itself. The metal was not just a building material. It was a computer. Graduate student Kevin Park was helping with the electrical tests. Kevin was 24 years old and very good with computers and electronics. He was wearing a neural interface headset that let him connect his thoughts to computer systems. "Dr. Carter," Kevin said, "I think I should try connecting my neural interface to the metal. Maybe it will respond to human brain patterns." Helen thought this was dangerous, but Kevin was right. They needed to know if the metal could interact with human minds. She made sure the medical team was ready in case something went wrong. Kevin placed his hand on the metal surface while wearing his neural interface headset. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the metal began to glow with bright colors that moved in waves across its surface. "Something is happening," Kevin said. His voice sounded strange, like he was talking from far away. "The metal is reading my thoughts. It is learning how my brain works." Helen watched the computer screens that showed Kevin's brain activity. His neural patterns were changing in ways she had never seen before. But Kevin did not seem to be in pain or danger. If anything, he looked more alert and focused than usual. "I can feel it thinking," Kevin said with wonder in his voice. "The metal is not just a computer. It is alive in some way. And it likes human thoughts. It understands how we think better than we do." The connection between Kevin and the metal lasted for 10 minutes. When it ended, Kevin sat down and looked exhausted, but happy. The metal fragment was now glowing much brighter than before, and new patterns were appearing on its surface. "What did you learn?" Helen asked Kevin. "The metal calls itself a nexus core," Kevin said. "It is designed to connect minds together and make them work as one unit. But it can only work with certain types of thinking. Most alien species have minds that are too rigid and simple for the nexus to use." Ryan was looking at the new readings from their instruments. "The metal's activity level has increased by 300% since Kevin touched it," he said. "It is definitely responding to human neural patterns in a way it never responded to anything else." Dr. Foster made another important discovery while studying the internal structure of the metal. The empty spaces inside were not random. They were designed to hold other components, like weapons and engines and communication systems. "This fragment is just one piece of something much larger," Ryan explained to the team. "The original object was probably a spaceship or space station, a very big one, based on the size of this piece." Lieutenant Colonel Hayes was listening to everything with great interest. "Can we build more of these Nexus things?" he asked. "Can we use this technology to improve our own ships and weapons?" Helen looked at the test results and thought about what Kevin had experienced. "The metal seems to want to work with humans," she said. "It responds to us better than it probably responded to its original creators. We might be able to do things with this technology that were never possible before." Over the next few weeks, Helen's team learned more about the Nexus Core technology. They discovered that it could control multiple machines at the same time, making them work together like parts of one big machine. It could also improve and upgrade itself, becoming more powerful and more intelligent over time. The most important discovery was that humans were uniquely suited to use this technology. Human creativity and flexible thinking made the Nexus Core work better than it had ever worked before. "We are not just studying alien technology," Helen told Lieutenant Colonel Hayes during their weekly meeting. "We are discovering technology that was meant for us, even though we did not build it." As Helen's team continued their research, they did not know that their discoveries were being watched. Far out in space, alien ships were moving toward Earth. The original creators of the Nexus Core technology had been searching for their lost weapon for hundreds of years. Now they knew where it was, and they were coming to take it back. The salvage ship Lucky Strike moved slowly through the dark space between dead planets. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the stars through the big front window. His crew had been working in this area for 3 weeks, now looking for anything they could sell. Jake was 42 years old and had been running salvage operations for 15 years. He knew how to spot valuable metal and broken machines floating in space. Most of the time, they found small pieces of old ships or mining equipment. Sometimes they got lucky and found something worth real money. Chief Engineer Lisa Davis called Jake on the radio from the cargo bay. She was 35 and the smartest person Jake had ever worked with. She could fix anything and figure out how any machine worked just by looking at it. "Jake, you need to come down here," Lisa said. Her voice sounded strange, like she had found something she could not understand. Jake left the bridge and walked through the narrow halls of his ship. The Lucky Strike was not pretty, but it was strong and reliable. It had thick metal walls and powerful engines that could pull heavy loads. Jake had bought it 10 years ago with money from his biggest salvage find. When Jake reached the cargo bay, he saw his crew standing around a huge piece of twisted metal. The thing was bigger than a small house and covered in deep cuts and burn marks. It looked like it had been in a terrible fight. Navigator Pete Collins was running his scanner over the metal surface. Pete was young, only 28, but he was good with computers and could read energy patterns better than anyone. His scanner was making strange beeping sounds. "This is not normal ship metal," Pete said, looking at his screen with confusion. "The computer does not know what this stuff is made of. It is harder than steel but lighter than aluminum. That should not be possible." Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez was checking her radio equipment nearby. Amy was 31 and had worked on military ships before joining Jake's crew. She knew how to find information and keep secrets when needed. "I have been listening." "To all the space channels," Amy said. "Nobody is looking for this thing. No distress calls, no salvage claims, nothing. It is like this piece of metal does not exist in any official records." Lisa was touching the metal with her bare hands, which was something she never did with unknown materials. Usually she wore thick gloves and used tools to examine salvage. But something about this metal seemed to call to her. "Feel this," Lisa said to Jake. "Put your hand on it." Jake thought this was a bad idea, but he trusted Lisa completely. He placed his palm against the metal surface. It felt warm, which was impossible in the cold of space. It also felt smooth, even though it looked rough and damaged. "The metal is warm," Jake said with surprise. "How can it be warm out here?" "That is not the strange part," Lisa replied. "Watch this." She pressed both hands against the metal and closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then small lights began to glow under the surface of the metal, following the patterns of cracks and cuts. Pete's scanner started beeping faster. "The energy readings just jumped up," he said with excitement. "Something inside this thing is waking up." The lights under the metal surface grew brighter and began to move in slow waves. The pattern looked almost like breathing or a heartbeat. Jake had never seen anything like it in all his years of salvage work. "We need to get this thing to someone who understands alien technology," Jake said. "This is way beyond anything we can handle." Amy checked her communication equipment again. "I am still not getting any signals from it," she said. "But there are very faint energy waves coming out of the metal. They are too weak to be dangerous, but they are definitely there." The crew spent the next hour examining their find. The metal piece was clearly part of something much larger. They could see where it had been connected to other parts. The edges were not cut or broken off. They looked like they had been carefully separated, as if the original builders had planned for the pieces to come apart. Lisa found something that looked like writing carved into one section of the metal. The symbols were not like any human language, but they had a pattern that seemed almost familiar. The writing glowed with the same soft light as the rest of the patterns. "This writing is giving me a strange feeling," Lisa said. "Like I should be able to read it, but I cannot quite remember how." Pete discovered that the metal was not solid all the way through. His deep scans showed empty spaces inside, like rooms or tunnels. Some of these spaces still had air in them, which meant the metal was completely sealed and airtight. "There might be things inside this metal," Pete said. "Equipment, maybe even bodies. The air inside is still good, which means this thing has not been floating in space for very long." Jake made his decision. Instead of selling the metal to the highest bidder like he usually did, he would take it to Earth. The Terran Defense Initiative had scientists who studied alien technology. They would pay good money for something this unusual, and they would keep it secret. "Set course for Earth," Jake told Amy. "Send a message to the defense labs on Luna Station. Tell them we have something they will want to see." As the Lucky Strike began its journey toward home, none of the crew noticed that the lights in the metal were getting brighter. The patterns were becoming more complex, spreading to parts of the surface that had been dark before. Something deep inside the alien metal was slowly waking up. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what they had really found. He had a feeling that this discovery would change everything for humanity. He just hoped it would be a good change. The piece of metal that Jake's crew had found was not random junk floating in space. It was a fragment of the most advanced warship ever built by the Zephyrian Empire. It contained technology that had taken centuries to develop and had been lost in battle long ago. The Zephyrians had been searching for their lost technology ever since. They would do anything to get it back, including going to war with any species that found it first. But Jake and his crew did not know any of this. They only knew they had found something amazing, something that seemed to respond to human touch in ways that alien technology never had before. The journey to Earth would take 2 weeks. During that time, the metal fragment would continue to wake up, learning about its new human discoverers and preparing for what was to come. 3 months after the battle, the USS Liberty Bell limped into the New Geneva system, with its hull scarred and patched. The old mining ship looked like it had been through a war, which it had. Pieces of melted Zephyrian biometal were welded to its damaged sections, giving it a strange appearance that was part human engineering and part alien technology. Captain Lisa Bryant stood on her bridge, watching as dozens of human ships moved to escort them toward the main refugee station. Word of their victory had spread faster than their damaged ship could travel. Every human settlement in 3 systems now knew the story of how an ancient mining vessel had destroyed the most powerful fleet in the Zephyrian Empire. The communication channels were filled, with voices calling out to them. Miners, traders, colonists, and military personnel all wanted to see the ship that had changed everything. Children who had never seen a Zephyrian ship except in nightmares now spoke of the Liberty Bell like it was something from legend. Bryant opened a channel to the refugee fleet that had gathered around New Geneva. Thousands of humans who had fled their homes were living in converted cargo ships and mining platforms, waiting for news that it was safe to return. Now she had something better than safety to offer them. She had hope. "This is Captain Lisa Bryant of the USS Liberty Bell," she began, her voice carrying across space to every human ship in the system. "6 months ago, we thought our fight was over. The Zephyrians had destroyed our colonies and scattered our people. We were alone, outnumbered, and facing an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat." She paused, looking around at her crew. Jake Morrison was still covered in grease from keeping their patched engines running. Dr. Amy Rodriguez clutched a datapad containing the research that had saved them all. Danny Chen sat at his pilot station, the man who had learned to make an old mining ship dance like a fighter. Ben Parker monitored communications, making sure their message reached every human settlement they could contact. "But we learned something important in that battle," Bryant continued. "The Zephyrians are not as powerful as they want us to believe. Their bioships can be defeated, their empire can be challenged, and most importantly, they fear us now." The truth of her words was already spreading through Zephyrian space. The destruction of the Iron Storm Blade and its entire fleet had sent shockwaves through the Empire. Bioship commanders who had once attacked human settlements without a second thought now hesitated before entering systems where humans might be hiding. The resonance frequency that Amy had discovered was being shared with every human technical crew in the galaxy. Mining ships throughout the sector were being quietly retrofitted with the new weapon, turning humanity's most humble vessels into potential fleet killers. The Zephyrians' greatest advantage had become their greatest weakness. Jake Morrison had been working with engineers from across human space, teaching them how to modify mining equipment for combat use. Plasma cutters designed for asteroid work could be turned into devastating beam weapons. Rail drivers that moved space rocks became ship-killing artillery. Even simple mining charges could be reprogrammed to create the resonance patterns that destroyed bioships. The modifications were spreading through the human fleet like wildfire. Every mining vessel, every cargo hauler, every small civilian ship was becoming a potential threat to Zephyrian forces. The Empire's scouts reported seeing human ships everywhere, but they could no longer tell which ones were harmless traders and which ones were disguised warships. Dr. Rodriguez had become the most famous scientist in human space. Her research on bioship vulnerabilities was being studied at every human research station. Military leaders who had once dismissed her as a young colonial doctor now hung on her every word. She was working on new ways to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses, and early reports suggested she was close to several major breakthroughs. But the most important change was not in technology or tactics. It was in the hearts and minds of humanity itself. Ben Parker had intercepted dozens of Zephyrian communications over the past months. The Empire's forces were pulling back from human territories, not because they lacked the strength to attack, but because they were afraid. Reports spoke of the ghost frequency that could destroy entire fleets, of human ships that appeared dead but struck without warning, of an enemy that refused to accept defeat. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy through fear and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that fought back with such determination and creativity. Their bioships were designed to intimidate primitive species into surrender, not to fight opponents who turned mining tools into weapons and used their own technology against them. 3 new human colonies had been established in systems the Zephyrians had abandoned. Mining operations were starting up again in asteroid fields that had been empty for months. Trade routes that had been cut off were slowly reopening as human ships began moving freely through space that had once been controlled by the Empire. Captain Bryant finished her address to the refugee fleet with words that would be remembered for generations. The USS Liberty Bell is just one ship crewed by ordinary people. We are not super soldiers or brilliant generals. We are miners and doctors and engineers who refused to give up when everything seemed hopeless. If we could defeat an entire Zephyrian fleet, then any of you can do the same. She looked out at the stars, thinking of all the human settlements scattered across the galaxy. Some were still under threat, still hiding from Zephyrian patrols. But now they had something they had not had before. They had proof that the Empire could be beaten. The war is not over, Bryant continued. But it is no longer hopeless. The Zephyrians fear us now, and they have good reason to. We have shown the galaxy that humanity will never surrender, never give up, and never stop fighting as long as we draw breath. The Liberty Bell was officially commissioned as the flagship of the new human defense fleet, its ancient hull reinforced, with hybrid technology that combined human engineering with captured Zephyrian biometal. It would serve as both a symbol and a weapon, reminding everyone that the most dangerous ships were not always the newest or the largest. As news arrived of another Zephyrian retreat from a human system, Bryant realized that their victory had been about more than survival. They had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The ancient ship that no one had feared was now the vessel that struck terror into the hearts of an empire. The legend of the Liberty Bell would inspire human resistance for years to come, proof that determination and ingenuity could triumph over any enemy, no matter how powerful they seemed.